XS Wireless Digital is the perfect wireless audio solution for content creators and filmmakers. Thanks to a 2.4 GHz transmission, XS Wireless Digital is a truly plug-and-play system that allows you to upgrade your in-camera audio with one-button operation. With a variety of configurations to choose from, this entry point into the world of wireless will improve your workflow and will expand the possibilities of how you capture audio for your video. For more information, visit sennheiser.com/xswd.
The new Super 35 sensor that Canon have introduced with the C300 Mark III is quite a big step up from other S35 sensors that they have created before. From the body and the flexibility that gives us in terms of the expansion packs and the interchangeable mount, to the sensor with its increased dynamic range for tackling scenes that possibly we couldn't have tackled or captured faithfully before, I can get more out of this camera. My money goes further. It's as simple as that from a business standpoint. From a creative point of view, it's unquestionably unlocking more creative avenues for us as filmmakers.
Hello everyone, apologies for the technical issues. If you're joining us for the first time, yes, this is a new stream, a new link, but it is the second half of the stream. We were halfway through when our entire system here in the streaming room completely ground to a halt for some reason, which we will investigate afterwards, but completely our end. Severe apologies for that. I was in the middle of, we were in the middle of a fantastic presentation from Chris from BlackMagic. Welcome back, Chris. I'm sorry about these technical issues.
It's all right. That's the world we live in, isn't it, unfortunately?
How long were you going talking to yourself before I managed to call you and let you know that we'd died?
Oh, I was straight on it, mate. Yeah, I was. I realised straight away and just stopped talking. Didn't carry on for at least those 2 minutes until my phone went and thought, why is Carl ringing me?
That would be embarrassing.
During the stream.
Right.
No, absolutely, I carried on. Pure professional, mate, you know.
So let's get back to where we started. We've got a couple of questions going. Welcome back to part 2, Video Editor Bloke, and Guy Cassidy saying, are we going to restart or pick up where the previous stream broke? We will just pick up. The previous one is still there, so if anyone joining us for the first time, just go back and watch that previous one if you like. Or we're going to pick up, we were halfway through talking about the technology which you used throughout your entire lineup of cameras, weren't we? And then we will shortly get to some Q&As, and I've saved all of your questions from the first stream ready to ask Chris when we get to the Q&A session. So yeah, let's pass back to you, and sorry very much once again for the interruption.
Yeah, so I think it was Gen 5 Colour Science that we were up to, so I will just play back in from here. I will just go back up from the top. So I'll just go back through Gen 5 Colour Science. Apologies if it was that I had started to go through this. But let's go. So our new 6K Pro was built around the Generation 5 Colour Science, which will also be included in the 4K and 6K. It was developed with DaVinci Resolve technology and IP processing within the camera, again hailing back to that control that we've got through that pipeline by using post software and cameras that we manufacture. We've got that control. Our colour science underpins our sensor performance, reproducing extremely accurate skin tones, image clarity, and beautiful lifelike colours like never before. Through our ever-evolving development, we fine-tuned our colour science to allow creators to match both archive and current footage to perfection. Colour fidelity and colour reproduction are the most important qualities of an image, creating that richness. Building upon the popular Gen 4 colour science, Gen 5 is a fantastic addition as it can easily be manipulated and worked with within DaVinci Resolve to produce vivid colours and accurate representations of what the camera is capturing. We feel you cannot compromise on any of our unifying technology within our cameras, the ease of use and the operability of the BlackMagic OS, the available light possibilities down to having that dual ISO sensor, the efficiency and image preservation of the BlackMagic RAW, and to round it off, the color fidelity and reproduction from our new Generation 5 color science, giving a really well-rounded package. These 4 areas encapsulate what you need in a camera to create those cinematic images, something which is shared throughout our core technology. So moving on, what we're going to do now is just, I think it's a really good time after being through the 4K and the 6K and talking about the new additions of the 6K Pro and the core technology that rides within it. We'll now look at the main differences when looking at standout features, and hopefully this will help to just drill down as to which of these cameras would be best for you if it is that you're looking at investing within this kind of small form factor. So let's have a look in a bit more detail. So the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, you can see the diagram on the slide is showing 6 areas that we feel you would consider as a camera operator when choosing your desired camera. It's not exhaustive, but typically you would look at frame rates, dynamic range, ND filters, resolution, sensor size, and rolling shutter. First and foremost, the Pocket 4K strength really lies in its faster rolling shutter readouts of approximately 16 milliseconds, resulting in a more sensitive sensor and better handling of available light situations. Again, using the 4K as that bottom end, you've got the cheaper lenses available, the smaller lightweight lenses available through that Micro Four Thirds mount. You've also got a faster readout on the rolling shutter, which means, again, if you haven't got money to be investing in additional light sources and you need to make the most of what you have available, this is where the 4K sits perfectly. This combined with our dual ISO helps combat the issue whilst retaining all that latitude that these cameras can obviously acquire. We also have the smaller 4K 4/3 sensor. The smaller size and resolution are often better suited for documentaries and ENG shooters, as they prefer that deeper depth of field and also the wide range of lightweight and small Micro Four Thirds lenses that the sensor brings. Finally, we have the Pocket 4K's frame rates of up to 60 in native 4K or 120 in HD window to create cinematic slow motion effects within a compact form factor camera. Type of use cases, so as mentioned previously, we've seen our Pocket Cinema Camera 4K used for a wide variety of applications. Where we tend to see the 4K is predominantly in event videography, where the demand nowadays is for a more cinematic approach, and we've got a really good user case story a couple of slides down the line that really goes into that and shows off someone who's doing exactly that in the industry. Online content creators also use it for YouTube content due to its ability to work with our ATEM streaming products, or independent film productions who prefer the compactness and versatility of the camera compared to a DSLR or mirrorless camera. Finally, we work very closely with film schools and universities, acting as an educational camera for students. The ease of use and accessibility of the camera really makes it an obvious choice for creatives that are starting out in the industry. Moving swiftly on to the Pocket 6K, you can already see the change in the diagram and what it's highlighted, but the key change obviously lies in the resolution, with the higher native 6K resolution in the Pocket 6K. The benefits include the ability to downsample to produce cleaner, sharper images in 4K or a 2K deliverable. Reframing, rescaling, stabilization in post-production, creating multiple shots in one frame, and ultimately to ensure you've got future-proof work that if you ever needed to go back to and remaster, you've got a really high resolution archive there. Pair the 6K with the larger Super 35mm sensor and you get the incredible resolution in a compact form factor, with access to a wide variety of cinematic EF lenses due to the native EF mount. This, as we previously mentioned, allows for that shallower depth of field and more notable bokeh, which is something that a lot of people drive for when trying to create something cinematic. There is also the slight change in frame rates, with 60 frames now available in that native 6K resolution. So the Pocket 6K has been used fundamentally by creatives desiring cinematic aesthetics. Users include music video creators who often move on to larger cinematic TV dramas and feature film productions. Large-scale advertising commercial productions, including fashion or corporate events, utilize the cameras, often using many in unison for perfect image matching in post-production. We also have seen a high amount of independent feature films that use the 6K due to the increased resolution and Super 35mm sensor. Finally, we have the newly released 6K Pro. Nothing has changed from the 6K sensor or core technological capabilities of the camera. The difference here is the inclusion of the internal motorized NDs. Putting the other additions of the 6K Pro aside just for a moment, the NDs help the 6K Pro sit nicely in between the 6K and the G2. As we've already explained, it acts as an alternate solution now to the BlackMagic Cinema Camera 6K by hosting some additional ergonomic features that can help it to complement larger camera systems. The benefit of internal motorized NDs was to allow the creator to shoot in wide apertures without overexposing, with the benefits of that shallower depth of field and selective focus effects while under constrained lighting conditions, and without having to work with large external rigs, which again should make efficiency on shoot a lot quicker. The other additional 6K Pro upgrades, such as the new HDR screen, the battery grip, the EVF, are all based on functionality and operability. The internal NDs are the perfect complement to that 6K sensor, all working together to create the best camera possible for the user. Although the Pocket 6K Pro has only recently been released, we really do think that with the new features, we see this camera sitting in a wide variety of markets. The Pocket family has always been used as a handheld device or with gimbals, including run and gun documentary filmmakers, location scouts, or pickups on larger films. Specialist productions such as VFX works, crash cams, stunts, non-intrusive situations are also ideal for that small form factor that this camera offers. And again, that high image quality, allowing for, again, matching with larger camera systems and making this camera work really well in that kind of environment. Using that color science that we talked about, it becomes quite easy now to work with those larger camera systems and match the colors and color science between them. So yeah, when working on those more high-end Hollywood features or complementing bigger productions, this camera can sit in really well to do that. So here's just a quick comparison. I'm not going to touch on that. That's just what we've talked about, but you can see again just the kind of standout features and where the cameras sit in relation to that. Okay, some really interesting customer use cases now. So we want to highlight a few customer stories who've chosen BlackMagic for their creative work with complete end-to-end workflow. So again, touching on what I talked about before, what we strive for here at BlackMagic, from sensor to codec through to post-production. We'll start by looking at cinematographer Martin Kavinsky and his wedding production company, Kako Films. Martin is an award-winning wedding videographer based in the Czech Republic, creating high-end cinematic wedding films all over the world, primarily on the Pocket 4K, and using our entire workflow extensively and exclusively. Martin films in a documentary style to interrupt as little as possible and truly capture the emotional moments of such a special occasion that, again, as we all know, can never be recreated. And with that small, compact size of the 4K, it's ideal for this kind of work. He emphasises his need for superb colour grading and high image quality with a filmic look throughout his pipeline. Combine this with a requirement for lots of storage to film an entire wedding, he chooses to film in B-RAW for reduced file sizes whilst maintaining that colour fidelity and dynamic range. The entirety of his projects are edited and grading using DaVinci Resolve for a complete end-to-end BlackMagic design workflow. Another exciting story centres around a social media campaign for the Mercedes AMG A-Class, which was shot by DP MATTEO BERTOLI with the Pocket Cinema Camera 6K in BlackMagic RAW. The entire project, shot on location in Frankfurt, Germany, involved tracking and lighting a moving car through the streets and traffic. Matteo utilised a native 6K resolution and dual ISO against minimal existing streetlights to help create the drama of the nighttime driving shots, combined with a fluid contemporary dancer in some studio scenes. Matteo has used the pocket cinema camera for a long time, shooting B-roll at 5:1 and 3:1 compression rates in 6K at 48 frames and 24 frames per second, benefiting from the power of RAW in such small and efficient file sizes. It was edited and graded completely with DaVinci Resolve Studio, providing end-to-end workflow consistency throughout the pipeline. A UK-based commercial agency, Still Moving Media, recently completed a project promoting the launch of a new Aston Martin Concorde edition with British Airways, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the iconic Concorde's first flight. Still Moving Media used the Pocket Camera 4K to deliver their client's vision of tracking and chasing an Aston Martin on a closed airfield. It was chosen for its compact design and lightness when rigging cameras directly to a vehicle, while still providing internal RAW recording and the ability to use EF lenses through a lens adapter for superior image quality. Still Moving Media were able to record to CFast in RAW via SDI direct to our own BlackMagic design video assist held by the first AD in the car. The performance and colour science of the camera provided incredible creative options in post-production, with the project being fully edited and graded again in DaVinci Resolve. And to finish on, a fairly high-profile case to end, which involves the DOP John Brawley using a combination of our Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K G2 and Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. The Great is a 2020 satirical costume drama streaming on Hulu, starring Ellie Fanning and Nicholas Hoult. Whilst John shot the majority of the 8-camera footage with an Arri Alexa SXT, he often used the G2 and the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K at the same time, shooting in BlackMagic RAW. As John mentioned, BlackMagic's range of cameras gave me the most flexibility in choice when approaching a shot. I can use any camera and know that I'll get great shots. An example would be when hero close-ups of Ellie Fanning was shot using the Pocket Cinema camera in handheld mode. This is a shot that just couldn't have been achieved with a larger, bigger camera system. The images from the Arri and BlackMagic cameras were seamlessly matched in post-production, as he felt the looks, colours and dynamic range felt quite similar, using LUTs made in pre-production, again utilising DaVinci Resolve. So in summary, we've explored the key innovative developments of our new Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro and where it sits within the Pocket family now. We've also seen how those new ergonomic additions enhance your production, allowing for more creativity and operability when filming. We also took a look at where we see the 6K Pro fitting into the market, and I've given you some Pocket family use cases. However, I'm sure you've got a ton of questions that you'd like to ask, so let's move on into the Q&A. And if you do have any additional questions after the webinar, then please do reach out to us at presales-emea@blackmagicdesign.com. Again, many thanks for joining me and taking the time today. I hope you found this webinar useful and insightful.
Lovely stuff.
And we can move on to Q&A.
Thank you so much for that, Chris. I think that was a fantastic presentation. We've got a bunch of questions right from the very beginning, which let's shoot through these quick fire test style. So thank you for everyone who asked questions, and I'm going to try and rush through as many of them as we can and as we've got time for. So the first one from John Mika, right at the very beginning, before the stream even started, he was asking what types of lenses should I be buying for the BlackMagic 6K Pro and what sort of price are they? Are there any particular lenses that you really enjoy using, Chris?
It's a tough one. I am very much primes, you know. I really feel, you know, lens choice has to come down to what it is you're shooting, you know. If it is going to be run and gun documentary, live event stuff, then you're going to be looking down the zoom lenses, aren't you? Let's be honest. Exactly. If it's cinematic, drama, fiction, I'd absolutely be going for primes. For me, primes really help you to understand lens aesthetic and what those different focal lengths give you, not only in reach of the lens, but also the actual aesthetic that lens can bring. So for me, it has to be down to what it is that you're shooting.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, right here we've got some physically in front of me. So I've got these both with Canon zoom, so the 24-70 and the 24-105, both very common, sort of all-purpose but good quality zooms. I'm just going to bring up a few good options on our website. Best bid. Oh.
I mean, the great thing with EF mount is that there are tons of options out there.
Absolutely.
So really, you're very.
I mean, the Pocket 6Ks really excel when you get them with a manual cinema prime, like you said, because primes are just so good. These DZO ones are one that are very much on my watch list right now. These are EF primes at a really affordable price, only just over £1,000 exFAT each, and there's a whole range of them, all T2.1 pretty much, apart from the extreme ends either side. These look very, very interesting. The ones that, I mean, there's the classic ranges that we sell quite a lot of for these cameras, like the Samyang Zines, very, very popular cinema choices, an affordable range. And then there's the Sigma cinema.
I have to say, I'm a big fan of the Sigmas.
The Sigmas have got a lovely look to them, really sort of warm, almost classic look to them. This is a slightly odd choice. This is their full frame zoom, but this sort of lens. They've also got all their art primes if you can't stretch to cinema ones. So there's loads of good options for lenses. John, if you're still watching, just get in touch with our sales team and we can help you argue the pros and cons of each type. So Jordan Wright has said, any word on the blue tint monitor issue? We were wondering if this would come up. It's something me and Chris were chatting about a little bit beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have spoken with the team, and we are aware of the issue. And it is the nature, unfortunately, of LCD screens that they do not always offer consistent colour, and sometimes do have a bias towards one particular colour. This can be more apparent when, switching between different models of LCD screen. It is an issue we're aware of. We are addressing it currently, and this issue will hopefully be addressed in a software update in due course. If for any reason, you are having a lot of bugbears with it, please do get in touch with us, and we'll do our best to get you going.
And with us, we've already had quite a few customers call up about it, and our actual demo unit here, this one I'm holding, does have it. Anyone's interested at home. If anyone hasn't come across this, all this is that the LCD just looks a little bit cooler than it should. So it's a bit more, it's called a blue tint. Really, the white balance of the LCD is slightly wrong and the white point is slightly wrong, and it just looks slightly cooler than it should do. And that's particularly noticeable when you've got the EVF, which looks exactly as it should. So as long as you're white balancing properly with an actual auto white balance off of a grey card and not just eyeballing it off of the LCD screen, you should be fine. And hopefully it will be fixed very soon in a firmware update from you guys. Yeah, and again, just to be clear, that we've found that isn't on every camera. Sure. It is only certain ones that we've heard back from. So it's probably manufacturing batches, I'd imagine, isn't it?
I'd very much imagine so, yeah. But product development are on it, and we are working towards a resolution as quick as we can. Cool. So, keep an eye out. So Millennial is asking, how's the autofocus? The autofocus is very rudimentary, I think. As somebody who isn't working from BlackMagic, I can say it's effectively a one-push autofocus based on a contrast-based autofocus system. So it works by having a little box. You put the box over what you want. You can move it anywhere, which is quite nice. But then it will just do a little bit of hunting and then find something. So it's not quick. It's not continuous, but it does seem pretty accurate. I mean, how many people do you find actually using that autofocus, Chris? I'll be honest, it's not something I get asked a lot about on this camera. Purely because this is a cinema camera that's developed from the ground up for cinema video use. For me, there are a lot of cameras out there that will do continuous autofocus. I don't think you'll get the same style of cinema quality imagery out of those cameras. So really, for me, this is a camera that sits in that cinema environment where you do manually focus stuff. Again, you have focus pullers. You have different people around the camera that look after those separated roles, and that's where I see it for me personally. That's That's kind of where I see it.
Okay, so we've had a question on the actual EVF for the Pro, saying has BlackMagic got any plans for using the EVF away from the top of the camera? So the EVF, for those of you who haven't seen one in person, connects with these pins on the bottom, and the new 6K Pro has got firstly the right sized slot on the top here, but it's also got the actual pin connection there. I guess what they're meaning is something I've actually spoken about in a couple of videos, and I've seen lots of people talk about online, is it possible to create a cable that goes from the top there just to somewhere else on the body, so that you can use an EVF mount or something like that and have it mounted to one side, a bit like that. Do you reckon that's something that would ever be possible?
It's something that I have actually heard talked about. It's not something that's been manufactured yet, or that will be manufactured from us at the moment. But sure. I have heard talks about it, so I do think there is the potential to adapt it like that.
At the very least, that might mean the engineers will at least look into it to see whether it's something that is possible to do, which would be very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we do get a lot of third-party manufacturers looking at our stuff, especially cable manufacturers, that again,
that's the other possibility. Definitely. I mean, there's loads of fantastic cable manufacturers that could potentially.
Because also you've got to think about how it will rig as well in that stage.
Oh,
because,
it needs to be on something quite sturdy.
Yeah, and again, there's no attachments on it currently that would allow it to connect. You can't mount it on a standard screw thread or anything like that. So again, there is a little bit of thought that will need to go in there, but yeah, I can see the potential, definitely.
Yep. Having a few questions about availability and when the next batch is availability. I'll show you on our website, but we actually have stock right now. So Pro EV has a bunch in stock. We placed a very large order when they first came out, so we have still got some of that available for customers. So if you're sitting there waiting for a camera that hasn't arrived yet, I mean, from us, we shouldn't have any customers sitting there waiting for a customer, because we have them in stock. But if you're sitting there waiting from someone else, or you're just on the fence about buying, get in touch with us, because we can get them out to you pretty much next day now, until that stock runs out. But hopefully it won't be long after that until the next batch as well. Okay, so Vid3 North is saying, would BlackMagic consider a slightly upgraded version of the 4K? I guess essentially a 4K Pro version of the 6K Pro. New brighter screen, adding the port for the new viewfinder, and maybe a processing upgrade for power might not cost too much. So yeah, basically he's suggesting a 4K Pro version, presumably. Well, I mean, you won't be able to comment on anything that's coming new, so.
Yeah, I mean, I can't comment on development and what's coming, but it's certainly a great point. And I think with those additions of the Pro, and just the extra usability that they give, I think there could be, it could certainly add a lot to the 4K. But yeah, nothing that I know of or and can comment on. But yeah, keep your eyes peeled.
We've got another question on form factor from Alimox, saying, why with its bigger body, why not explore a form factor with either better ergonomics or better balance? The DSLR look that these are inspired by seems to be more from principle than actual practicality. Any thoughts on the design of them? I mean, you've clearly gone for this almost DSLR style look, and that's even more evident once you stick a viewfinder on the front like that.
Yeah.
Any comments on the design?
I mean, obviously you've got to look at how big that screen is on the back of the camera.
Yeah.
That kind of pushes obviously a lot of the design. Once we've started to manufacture cameras as well, we tend to stick with it, because you can look at our price points on cameras, and you can see, how competitive they are. The way in which we can do that is obviously by keeping certain parts of manufacturing the same. So yeah, that's what it is.
I think it's a really important point, and one that I do want to hammer home for people at home is some. I don't want to call it being realistic or putting perspective on it, but you've just got to keep in mind the things going on behind the scenes. We've had a lot of feedback from customers on things like body style and on new features like autofocus and things like that, saying, well, why aren't they doing it? Everyone else is doing it. Go, well, sure. But think of the price point that these cameras sell for, and think of the other things that Blackmagic have been doing with their time and with their R&D budget. I mean, you've put motorized ND filters in this for the first time you've done on any cameras. You've got this new EVF, and you've cleared, because you've now got a good EVF for your Ursa Mini Pro and a good EVF for the Pockets, when actually EVFs are something that is quite lacking on a lot of others things. Not to mention you've got your own RAW codec, which is one of the best on the market with Blackmagic RAW, which would have taken a lot of R&D development. Plus, with the Ursa Mini Pro 12K, there's a whole new sensor design, which I imagine would have taken a lot of development to make. Yeah, so absolutely. If you think behind the scenes, everyone that is concerned about maybe something that might be missing from this camera compared to ones which cost twice the price of it, just think of the amount of things that Blackmagic have had going on behind the scenes and the amount of research that would have been put into one of these. They can't do everything and keep it at the same price point. And so I think they've struck a really nice balance of prioritizing the features that are most important to their customers, with prioritizing image quality being the biggest one. And then with this, taking this current ergonomics and tweaking it to make it more usable, I think is a really good and strong idea.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that recent release. We had the Pocket 6K Pro, the A10 Mini Extreme, and the Web Presenter HD. So I mean, exactly. 3 products that sit in different pools. So again, hopefully, kind of showing how much our R&D are working and looking to progress things on customer feedback. I mean, all of those 3 products, I think, really show that we are driving for what customers are coming back to us with, niggles with, and trying to improve product lines in that respect.
So many.
Obviously, we can't do it all, but
customer feedback.
Yeah.
Because there's a bit of backup from Joe Motion there in the chat. Very good point, Carl. True words spoken. Thank you for the support, Joe. Okay, let's crack on with some questions. Marshall was saying, did Chris say that in full 6K there is 60p? I believe there's 60p on both of the 6K versions. I think it has been brought in now to both of the cameras. I don't think it's full. Yeah, it's in a 2.4 to 1 aspect ratio. Right. The full 6K readout is 50 frames. But yeah, in a 2.4 to 1, so 6144 2560. It's up to 60, yeah. I see. Lovely little message there from DK Media, by the way, before we crack on with more, saying, can we just pass this message to Blackmagic? Thank you, in capital letters, for all that you guys do for the community. Which is lovely to get a bit of support from customers like that. I mean, often you hear a lot of negativity going towards manufacturers, so that is really lovely to hear.
Yeah, sometimes you only hear the negative stuff because when it's positive, they just crack on.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, just focus on using the tools.
Yeah, of course. No, I really appreciate that.
Okay, Damon is saying that he'd like to know when the Gen 5 update for the Pocket 4K will be released. Do you have any idea on timing for that? There's a firmware update coming for Gen 5 in camera on those models, right?
There is, yes. I don't have a definitive date right now. Obviously, it's the classic thing of kind of keep an eye on the website. It will be forthcoming, and that will be the first place you'll see of the drop. So yeah, it shouldn't be far off, but I don't have a definitive date right at this moment.
Okay, and Vilken Visions is saying, why is there no option to delete files inside the Pocket cameras? And he'd also quite like a preview of any stills that are taken in the camera, on the camera. By preview, I mean in thumbnail mode, it can play back stills, I believe. You can view stills that have been taken on there. I guess you mean a preview, as in after you take a still, it flashes up, I guess is what you're meaning there, Vilken. In which case, I would actually think it's the right thing to do to not have that, simply because the stills function on these cameras is very much secondary to the video, and it's most commonly used for reference stills within a video production. So sometimes you want to take those while it's actually recording, and the last thing you want is something flashing up on screen while you're recording with that. As for the no option to delete files, that's something you see on pretty much every professional video camera with professional quality media. Really, you should never be deleting files inside a camera unless you absolutely have to. even on the cameras that can't do it. Media is surprisingly sensitive to issues that come from the way that the drive is being structured. And so video cameras, because they've got to keep up this very, very demanding sustained write speed, they want to create the minimal amount of problems possible on their cards. And so that's why it's always best to format the card before use in camera, so that it gets it nice and clean and good to go in the format that the camera wants, not the format that the computer wants. And you just want to make sure there's nothing going on that will interrupt that massive flow of data from the camera sensor onto the media card. And deleting things has the potential to trip cameras up with their pointing media in the right way, if you like, pointing those noughts and zeros in the right way. So I would absolutely advise people never to delete a file inside a camera unless you absolutely have to. Always take the media out, copy it across to a drive, and then put it back in the camera and completely reformat the drive. Or just have multiple cards so that you can swap them out and have a bunch of clean ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I think that's nearly it for the questions. Let me just do a quick little flip through. No, there's a bunch of people praising BlackMagic RAW. In particular, Mr. Heng says 12K BlackMagic RAW editing is insanely good on older computers, so thank you, which is fantastic. I mean, RAW 12K on older computers, that's incredible.
Yeah, and again, just that shows, that's what we've driven for with that codec. So it's fantastic to hear people working like that. Yeah, exactly why it's there, what we did it for. So amazing.
And Daniel Peters is saying BlackMagic's always killing it for price and performance, and KME Film saying BlackMagic design is amazing and what they're able to accomplish. Absolutely. Cool. So I think that's a fantastic place to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Chris, for running us through and answering those questions. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. No, it's been great. I've really enjoyed it. And thanks for everyone tuning in. You're what drivers. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. I'm sorry once again for the technical issues halfway through this. We will do our best to iron out so that if this goes up on demand, we will make sure that it can be watched all the way through. I just want to say before we finish, I mentioned it a couple of times throughout the stream, but the Pocket 6K Pro is in stock here at ProV. So we can get these out to customers on next day delivery if you order them now. So if anyone's sitting there at home thinking of buying one of these, please do get in touch. Not all of the accessories are in stock right now, so the EVFs and the grips are things. So we've got a couple of EVFs by the looks of it, and we've got no grips left. The grips have all sold. So not the entire package is in stock, but the most important bits are the camera, and there is a couple of EVFs left. So if you're sitting at home waiting for one, please do get in touch. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you once again, Chris, for leading us through the presentation. And I will see you all very soon. Thank you.